2025. Council meeting to order at 6 p.m. If everyone please rise for the pledge. Thank you. Okay, item 1, public comments and announcements. At this time, we would like to listen to any member of the audience on any subject matter, whether or not that item is on the agenda. All comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for each speaker, shall be limited to city business or city-related business or matters of general public interest, and should not include any personal attacks. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members may not discuss or take action on any item that has not been posted on the agenda. When your name is called, please come to the podium, state your name and address clearly into the microphone before making your comments. And remember, you can register online on the website before council meetings if you choose to do so. Today we have one speaker, Joe McCall. Joe?
Howdy, Joe McCall, lived in Seabrook for 59 years. Okay, a couple things. The audit that was done last time, it's the same company. This is one of those things where I think the people need to understand. The name of the company changed, but it's the same company. They just merged with another company. This is the kind of stuff that it drives me crazy, but it drives a lot of other people crazy too. It's been the same firm for 12, 14, we could just say 10,000 years. It's been the same team. Just got to get somebody different, someone totally neutral to look into your books. Should never have that same company. So it's just a backward way of not telling the truth to the people, in my opinion. I don't like it, so it needs to change. And I'm going to keep on this. I'm never going to give up on that. Conflict of interest on the EDC and council. Heard that there's someone going to ask for money from EDC to their business, but there's also this company helped out a bunch of candidates, so the conflict of interest in that, better watch that. There people are looking at that too. That's already come out. So I'm just reminding people, don't get involved in that. If you made a decision on a company getting funds, make sure that they didn't support you or do something prior to that. Doesn't look good. Plus, I guess it's against the law too. Miramar Green is the street that I was talking to you about, Jim, about that. Miramar Green, yeah. So that's the name of the street. I know that's on a punch list to get done, but I brought that up back in December, so that's 6-7 months now, so I think that could get done. And we make signs, so let's just put it up there. I mean, okay, and then flags. I brought that up, and I'm not going to dwell a lot about that. One of the other things I talked about besides a bunch of flags is the massive flagpoles, so I think we should have a bunch around the cities. But the other big thing, right after I spoke last meeting, someone sent me a picture of these two flag displays. They're displayed wrong. Never are they supposed to be with a point down. Someone brought that up because they said that I was on camera and they could see this, and they brought it up. So that needs to be changed, and it needs to be changed basically immediately. When I leave, someone should be taking these down. You can open them up, flip them over where the point goes up. You never, ever display a flag, especially when it's for honor, with the point down. It's just one of those little things. The couple of the military people that sent it to me were really pissed off, and kind of don't blame them, because if you're going to do it, let's do it right. I don't blame the person who mounted it. If they don't know, that's fine. But once it's been brought to attention, it needs to change immediately. So that's one of those little things. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Item 2.1, new business, item 2.1, consider and take all appropriate action on task order 2, Witt O'Brien's professional services agreement, PSA, including an amount not to exceed $15,750 for city application to the US DOT SS4A grant program. Gail, do you have a?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'm bringing this task order to you. This is in direct correlation with the task order 1 that you previously heard for Whit O'Brien. Whit O'Brien is one of our grant writers, contract grant writers. They went out and did some research and immediately found some grants that we could, or this grant that we could tag on to for our roadway project. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. Most of our reconstruction of our roads, we're looking at anywhere between $3 to $5 million a road. And the SS4A program is probably the best pot of money that we can go after. So task order 1 was approved for $8,000. He was able to research that with less than about 4 hours. So we have not eaten through a good chunk of the $8,000. So I would be asking for approval of task order 2. This would come out of the street funds and be credited against that. The task that is at hand is diving into the application process. To be able to apply for this federal funding, we have to have what's called a safety action plan. This grant is revolving around doing safe roads, and they have to see that we actually have a safety action plan, and we do not. So this is what they call their planning grant. We would have to go after this for this funding year, and then next year, hopefully, we'll be in a position to go after the construction side of the grant. So I'll take any questions.
Gail, did you say or do you know what the total of the grant amount is?
So for this particular one, you'll see a resolution later on that actually allows us to submit the grant, but we're looking at probably about $250,000 to write an action plan. That grant is an 80-20 split, but all of our personnel time that our directors will be working on that can be credited against the city's 20%. So most likely will be very little out of pocket on the local match because we can credit personnel cost on that. But this type of plan is in about $250,000 to $280,000 range to do a plan like this.
To generate the grant?
Just to generate the plan.
The plant, wow.
Yeah.
And then what would be the potential dollar amount of a grant? Did I miss that?
Well, the grant for the planning, we'll probably get 100% probably by the time we do it. So it's an 80-20. The 20 can be charged against personnel time, so out of pocket for the local match, we probably will not have to write a check for that. Then in 2026, when they open up this funding opportunity again, since we'll have a plan hopefully in place, we can pick one of the roads off of our schedule. And like I said, a lot of the roads that need some total reconstruction, we're looking at between $3 to $5 million. And those are in the old Seabrook district. And we'll talk about that tonight. That's a difficult area when there's so much that has to be done on each one of those roads.
Thank you.
Move to approve 2.1.
Councilmember Hammond made a motion. Councilmember Tolet made a second. Do I have any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? We're unanimous. Thank you. All right, that concludes our regular session. We're adjourning our regular session at 6:09 p.m. and we're concluding our new business and entering into a workshop session at the same time, 6:09 p.m. Item 4, workshop discussion. Item 4.1, receive report, hold discussion, and provide input to staff regarding the proposed 5-year capital improvement program CIP for fiscal years 2025-2026 through 2029-2030.
Okay, Mayor and Council, I've got a presentation that I'll run through. This is a workshop session, so feel free to stop, interrupt if you've got questions. I want to take a moment just to thank my staff. Every time we kick off budget, it's a lot of work on everyone in addition to just regular duties, but a lot of work went in for our Public Works team and especially Mike in Finance of getting all of this together. So appreciate everybody on staff. We'll do a little 101. Our capital improvement program, as you can see, is a pretty in-depth spreadsheet document, and it's a long-term plan, and it is a strategic plan to help us plan for those large expenditures for equipment, for maintenance type things that we want to make sure is on the horizon, and we have a plan so that when that large amount hits, it's not a surprise, particularly to a small budget like ours. So these are usually construction, maintenance, or anything that's an improvement to one of our long-term assets. Majority of ours are parks, water, and sewer systems, but we have, as you can see, expanded into a couple areas that I'll show you here in a minute. This is required by your city charter in section 5.03. So this is step one, and we always call this our workshop one because this, once we get through this, and it'll take quite a bit of time tonight, is not enough time to squeeze it into our regular budget workshop. For me as city manager to deliver to you, this is our 5-year capital plan. It should list all of our improvements, give cost estimates, and basically give you that long-range plan. Once we get some direction tonight, if there's any changes, those numbers will be inserted into the budget. So when we go to the next budget meeting, we will make sure that those numbers are in the budget, and that's why we want to do this part first. So how do these projects get created? You hear me say master plans a lot, but every master plan at the back of that plan has projects. So we take on staff to make sure that once we spend the money on these plans, the implementation projects in the back are inserted into your capital plan if you desire for that to actually be something that you want to work towards. Sometimes we can't afford it and they're just out in the last column, but we keep them on this plan so that they don't die and live on a shelf somewhere. A lot of our high dollar assets, facilities, sometimes are getting close to end of age. We have fire departments on this program, so you can see that we are trying to work better towards these assets that are well over $1 million, over $2 million in some cases. Again, planning ahead to make sure that those don't surprise us. Then we have mandates, and then we take comments from council and community. All of that feeds into the projects that you see. In addition, your strategic priorities, so the pillars didn't change this particular year. You've made some different goals, but you can see infrastructure, quality of life are still on your strategic priorities. And then as we get into the planning stages, this just kind of depicts, we talk a lot about, we have a lot of buckets. So once you get into 100 plus sheets on your first PDF for your budget workshop, you'll see all of these things in the background. And that is not only general fund, but a slew of special funds. So these are all the buckets of money when we start to sit down and look at all of these CIP projects that we have available to possibly go into funding. So on your spreadsheet, the second, I believe, third column over is a funding column, and that shows you at this point what the recommendation is for funding the project. And the next column over would be your first year that you're looking at, which is your fiscal year 26. So that is how we come up with recommendations, looking at all of the financials that we have and balances, and then each bucket sometimes has specific projects that you can spend the money in the bucket on. So an example is your impact fees. If y'all are familiar with impact fees, when you get a new development in, those are going to have to go through water and sewer projects only. So we can't spend those on parks, or we can't spend it on a fire truck. And so there's things like that that we have to cross-check and make sure that we're spending it on the same type of project. Our debt issues are the same thing. When you go out for a debt issuance, whatever is in that description to the public is what we have to spend the debt on. So we have some for water and wastewater. We have some that include the wastewater plant, the water and drainage. So these are special funds that we look at when we're looking at this. We've spent the last, probably a couple of months going over this, trying to get this together. Projects are with myself and particularly Sean and Public Works, where we look at the water, wastewater, parks in particular, dive down into it, look at the priority based on comments we've heard throughout the year. And then if we can't find a bucket of money that is appropriate, keep it on the plan but sometimes we have to push it further down into the matrix a little bit, into a year further down. Mike and then I sit down, and he has the balances on the buckets, and we carefully go through and make sure that we're not depleting something that we're saving 2 years out for as well, and make sure that that all marries up as well. And then finally, tonight is a culmination of all that work and coming to you to make sure that the list is appropriate, the funding is appropriate in your eyes before we move into the actual budget. Again, the type of assets that you're looking at in the different categories are water, sewer, drainage, streets and transportation, facilities. We also, on a separate schedule, see we have equipment in our vehicles. We look at our parks. We've included sidewalks now, and IT is our newest section that we've added. This is the time of year also that in our previous years, if we had a large building or something that we did not have funds available for, but was a priority for council, we talk about bond elections, certificates of obligation, debt tools that would be appropriate at this time as well. There's none in this recommendation this year for that, but this is just to let you know that that's what has happened in the past at this workshop. The staff is responsible, and this is just a little snippet out of your CAFR, your audit. So you've got a lot of statistics in the back of your audit every year. So I thought this would be a good time just to show you what they're responsible for. But we've got over 200 acres of park land. We've got over 44 miles of streets. We've got sanitary sewer lines of over 56 miles. So just a little example of when they're going through age of assets, their long-term plan here is to make sure that they can look at all of the assets that we have and make sure we've got something in the works that, again, that it doesn't age out on us or have a maintenance issue we're unaware. Not part of your plan tonight, but just to let you know, we are working and also have a plan in the background for our fleet. And that is something that I think a lot of our departments are happy because they don't have to come during the budget season and sweat blood to make sure that they can get a new vehicle that's 20 years old. We do have what we call our fleet replacement program. We have it on a 7-year, and then if they're admin vehicles, a 10-year at this particular moment. When you get your budget worksheets in several weeks, you'll see at the end amortization. Amortization is our savings plan that pays for our fleet. So it's just another way, a long-range plan, much like what you're looking at on your capital side of making sure that we have a plan to replace those. So now we'll dive in where we're at in this current fiscal year on some of the projects. And again, stop me if you have specific questions. This is just going to show you how we think we're going to end on some of these, and then we'll jump into what's proposed on your 26 budget. So in your water projects, we have completed, starting on the far left, Shady Lake waterline replacement. Red Oak Acres waterline replacement was completed. And then we've got a few that we're still waiting on a few things. So there's a interconnect that we talk about in our updates. That's still in progress over by the Geon plant. Seascape is still active off of Red Bluff. We're hoping that will be done around August. And then the last one on the right is the old 146 interconnection. So Jesse and Brian are working with the county right now, and one weekend we believe they're going to have to do some lane closures to set a vault, and then we will be complete with this water line project. Wastewater. We have 2 projects there on the left that have been combined. We have a Pine Gully lift station force main. That's at that bridge. If you walk the trails that you're about to go over the bridge. And then the force main that's down by Pier 8. Both of those lines are lines that extend over an exposed bridge. With any type of surge or debris that runs through those gullies and floodways, then they are exposed to ripping that sewer line off the bridge. And these are boring it under the ground and will give us a more resilient wastewater plan on those 2 bridges. The portable generators, we are expecting Thursday. So we will get our first HMGP grant generators in this week, and we're excited about that before hurricane season. And then lastly, on the far right is the Main Street or the wastewater treatment plant demo. Those plans are already probably about 90% complete. We were waiting on some answers from the Bayside group, and I think we've got most of those answers. So they'll be finishing the plans. We'll get the RFP together, and then hopefully in the next month or so, we'll be going out to bid to bring down all the structures at the plant. Street projects. Last year, we put in for the North Mire with the county, so we have a 50-50 on the design, and we finally got into doing the kickoff meeting here in the last couple of weeks. So it's a little bit slower than what we anticipated. The city did take out $10 million in street certificates of obligation in 2023. That was in direct correlation. Brian and his team have purchased an AI program. The AI program will give him a reading after they drive the entire city to give a percentage of how good the street is at that particular moment. Brian and Jesse then analyze the data to determine which streets need to make it to the CIP. And these two streets in particular have the highest volume, and they are disintegrating quite rapidly. We've had droughts, and if you drive it and pay very close attention, you can see the spidering, you can see the sloughing on the side, and the volumes are high on those streets. So the one on the right, North Mire, is already in the works with the county. We are estimating about $1 million in design. This is complex because it's going to have drainage components. When we get down into Old Seabrook, we're going to have a sidewalk feature, so that's going to touch some drainage. It's going to go back as a concrete road, and that increases the complexity of it as well. So this one is in design. East Mire, we are going to go ahead and kick off into design in this current fiscal year so that we can be ready for possibly doing a construction grant in early 2026. Park projects, on the far left, you've got your bond election project, which is our Pelican Bay Pool. So you recently approved the proposal to go for a design bid build. We also have Wildlife Park, which is off Red Bluff. We have a parking area over at Wildlife Park that is just really a continual maintenance issue. And so this project is looking at going back with some concrete in the parking area, cleaning up, doing a seating area. We've moved the one-seat restroom from Brummerhoff over to Wildlife Park. So we're kind of creating a more amenities at that trailhead with this project. Carruthers Coastal Gardens, this is the grading and drainage plan. We'll be opening the bids on Thursday for this one, and we're still in progress. And then we'll talk a little bit later about the Pine Gully Pier, but that's on your program as well. Your facilities, projects, we have the fire truck. This was a bond election, and it's on order. For those of you who are new, it takes approximately 4 years almost to get the truck.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on how, on which line the truck goes in. So like the more custom it is, the longer it takes. And depending on the specs on the fire truck, I think on this one we've tried to like scale back the specs a little bit just to try to get a quicker delivery of it. Just a lot of it is a lot of CARPA funds that were used as part of the COVID relief. A lot of departments use those funds to buy fire trucks, and part of that process, it just delays everything. So it takes, it's on average, I think about at least 1.5 to 2 years for a simple truck, and then like the more complex the fire trucks are, the longer the delivery is of them. So it really means a lot for like long-term planning of knowing that a fire truck is going to need to be replaced sooner rather than later. Go ahead and get them on the books as soon as you can.
So that one is on order. We are in progress on the fire training tower, which was also part of that bond election. We've kicked off with the ad hoc committee for gateway and directional signage, and that's still ongoing. We also have the soon to be on your desk for bid award, the EMS and EOC expansion onto the fire department. We have another HMGP grant for a city hall replacement generator, and that's back here behind the police department. We had put in for a generator on the community house. That community house across the street sometimes can be a good place if we have something totally disastrous and we have a couple of families just trying to find some coolness or some warmth depending on the type of disaster. So we're working with HMGP. This one may have some issues and may not get to the finish line, but that was put in early. The generator at the fire station, thank goodness, that one is dead officially, and we've got the mobile. They're in good shape, but this was already in the grant pot, so we will have a full generator that at some point, they're a long queue for getting these orders in as well, but that will be coming. And then we had a fiber loop project. So the city has fiber loop for all of our technology around town. And the last loop we needed was from Repsdorf Water Tower down NASA Road 1 back to the side of town. So that project is now complete and was part of our facilities. Drainage and sidewalk. These two projects are suspended at this particular point. We didn't work on these. So these were planned out last year's CIP. The one on the left is, if you're familiar with the little cul-de-sac off of Meyer over here, there is a sidewalk to a ditch. And we were going to try to capture and just extend that sidewalk out over here to our granite trails at City Hall. The school district, with the upcoming, I think, completion of the ball fields, parking lot and everything, they'd like to work with us, but there's going to be a lot going on between the replacement of the ball field parking lot. And so we're waiting to kind of see how that emerges before we get back on this one. The one on the right also had some delays. So you have a subdivision off Meyer over there that's really not done a lot. And we had envisioned, we have a sliver of land where you can see that little yellow line there on the right. The city owns that little sliver of land, and the idea was to bring a trail through that and try to do an L shape back over to Main Street. Again, with little activity on that subdivision right now, we've kind of suspended that and definitely would be open to any comments tonight on that. Put together just a quick little video. I think pictures are good, so this is only just a couple seconds. So for your 2026, what you have before you on tabloid-sized paper to kind of help you walk through this is just summary with each one of those sections. So we'll kind of start. Again, we've got Brian and Jesse and Sean available. They'll have the bulk of a lot of the projects we're going to talk through tonight. So if at any point you'd like to get some more information, you have a question on a particular project, they'll be available for that. So these are your totals, wastewater, down to the sidewalk projects. Overall, we're projecting at full cost over $23 million in capital improvement projects. We'll go a little bit into each one of the projects, and again, stop if you have any questions. Wastewater projects, that particular subsection, we are looking at only the demolition of the existing plant. Our best estimate at the time we started this project was $440, and that we'll have to wait till the bids come in, but that's a bid project. So once we get the RFPs, we do have sufficient funding in the wastewater treatment plant. So there was a state funding mechanism that assisted us as we were going through and getting federal funds on the wastewater treatment plant. It has allowed us to have even additional funds. So we're healthy in that particular bucket. So if it comes in higher than this is a placeholder as an estimate to the best of our ability that we knew at that particular moment. And this is just an aerial. I think everybody's familiar with the site, but it will, from the stakeholders group, they've decided that none of the components, after talking to TCEQ and the cost involved, would be feasible to keep that. So everything that you see on the aerial, or if you're looking at from street view on this, is going to be coming down. So we'll have an empty slate for the plans on that one. On your street projects, we talked about the 2 Myers. So the East Meyer project is estimated at approximately $2.8 million. $8 million for the North Meyer project is, again, from Gales Feed Store to the 146, lots of drainage, sidewalks, that's going back all concrete. $8 million is the total. So we would be hopeful that we get the county to pitch in on 50% of the construction on that one. Lyman Street, we've got a shot of that, and I'll show you the condition of that street. And then the new one that we'll talk about that we've added this year are rural streets. So we have what we call classifications for each street. We have classifications called collectors. We have residential streets, and then we have rural streets. So if you drive up and down Toddville, you'll see some small, even tinier than old Seabrook streets that jet off of Toddville. And so Brian has put those together. They are getting in really bad shape, and we would see those as rural streets, and we'd like to keep those as asphalt. So it's not as much, but this would be an asphalt overlay on all of those streets. It's an area front view of your North Meyer. Again, this is approximately $8 million on reconstruction of this street. Lyman Street, this gives you a good bird's eye view. That's, again, no more than really a driveway. So we would be looking at, I think, widening that a little bit, right, Brian? Yeah. So be widening it a little bit. And this is concrete, but where are we going back, concrete? No, asphalt. Yeah, so I apologize. I meant to change that. Some of these small streets, it's not as critical with the volumes going on them as the East Meyer and the North Meyer to go back as a concrete. So we did change that back to asphalt. Keeping it open ditch, and this would be coming out of our CO for street money. Park projects. So we have quite a few that are slotted in your 26 column. Again, we have the wildlife, we have the Crothers East Track that's coming up, the pool, Bayside, and then P35 starting at that line. These are some newer ones that are certainly open for discussion, but that we've collected throughout the year. Hester Park Pedestrian Bridge. This is, if you do Lucky Trails or if you walk what we call the Library Trail and you get back up to Toddville, you have to actually go up on Toddville, then go on that tiny little sidewalk and then back down. And that has always been an issue. The guys in the county have put a lot of skid concrete so that it's not as dangerous as it was, but you're still forcing pedestrians up on Toddville, which can be a scary place. This is a proposal that would take a bridge across the gully and not force the pedestrians to go up on Toddville. So that project, P35, is estimated at approximately $168,000. Then we had one shade structure from the ARPA projects we could not squeeze in. So we had the cost estimate, and this is just a recommendation that we go ahead and cover the swing sets that are predominantly metal over there at the Friendship Park. And then we have 2 new projects that we would like to explore, which is expanding parking at Hester Park and then Robinson Park. So if you're out on the weekends, we do get quite a bit of activity at both of those parks, which is great, but you're running out of parking areas at times, and they get creative on where they're parking. And then lastly, Pine Gully Pier. Again, we don't have the majority of that funded, but we'll talk a little bit about that, and I've provided a little bit more background information in a hard copy to you tonight on that project. So quickly on going into a little bit more detail. So this is your wildlife trailhead improvement. Again, this is off Red Bluff. It's all granite. And if you can see the overlay on the depiction there, Brian's just kind of laid out the number of parking spaces. Would be going back, putting the ADA parking spot in, having proper markings, Again, this would get us the ADA compliance in this area, and then a more resilient surface, which would be the concrete in that area. And we would also, we've got a note on here. So Helen Burton is a past Open Space and Trails chair. Remarkable woman, remarkable leadership. And before she left, she wanted to make a donation of $10,000 to the city. She wants that to go towards a park amenity of some sort. So Sean is working with her directly to make sure that we can fulfill that donation to what she envisioned. And this would kind of wrap up into that. And again, this is the trail hub we moved restroom into. So idea is to kind of make sure we clean that up, dress this trailhead up, and hopefully with some new signage coming, all that will tie in together very nicely.
Is that an area where one of the trailhead signs would potentially go?
Yes. And I apologize. As I'm going through these blue sheets, it's on your spreadsheet, but this is one, when we established the new port fund, so we have quite a bit of money that's coming in on the port settlement agreement. This one is one that we are recommending to pull from port's special fund. So this one's estimated at approximately $266,000. Your Crothers Garden, this is the east track. I think most everybody's familiar with this. This would be putting in the actual, after the grading and the drainage, the trails as well. This is Crothers Fund for the funding. So we do still have this amount of money that's in the original bond special fund. So this, if it's around this cost when we open the bids on Thursday, this is funded out of that bond project, and we really need to close that bond account out because it's extremely old. So your Pelican Bay Municipal Pool, we had $500,000 when we were going through what to do with the pool discussion. So we've moved that over. So you actually are seeing on your spreadsheet $4.5 million. And that will be helpful because we do need to figure out what to do with the entrance of the pool. Everything that we've talked about is behind our aged infrastructure. So we're hoping the $500,000 will complement doing a pretty significant, at least nice upgrade to our restrooms. If we lose the buildings, then with the FEMA floodplain that they're in right now, we would be in the same predicament as all these other discussions where we'd have to raise a restroom. So as long as we don't go over that 50%, we are going to have those buildings, the pool house and the restrooms stay intact. But when you look at the front of it, we're working with a designer that will do something that will complement the $4.5 million that you're going to invest behind this fence as well. So that inclusive, the $500,000 to help towards the facade as well. Your wastewater treatment plant. So again, you've got a stakeholder group that's working on this. The 1.4 is just sort of a placeholder. I know those of you involved at that stakeholder meeting the other day, the numbers are coming up much higher than this, depending on what the ultimate design is going to be, and they are still working on that. But 1.4 really ties back to the monies that the port gave us that are just for park improvements. So that's where, at this particular moment, those numbers are coming from. Facilities, $4.4 million right now is what we're looking at. So again, we've had the gateway and directional signage on the CIP for years, and we've talked to EDC as a funding partner, and that's what we have on that one. We'll show that in just a minute. Generator, we talked about your EMS and EOC additions, your fire training tower, and then community house remodel. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So again, your gateway and directional signage will hopefully get some clear direction on what we're going in that direction. But again, EDC is aware that they are a potential funding partner on this type of thing. That's an eligible expense for EDC. And we've also talked that it's an eligible expense for instance on hot funds as well. So a couple of buckets we could pull from. EMS and EOC, this is your general obligation bonds. And for those of you who haven't seen the floor plan, this is just a little snippet of a little over 3,800 square feet. This will be the location, once it's built, that if we do have disasters, for instance, instead of staying here at City Hall, we'll probably be huddling up in the EOC room here. It has the office space for our EMS as well as emergency services, and then we'll provide for brand-new dorm rooms for just our EMS personnel. Our fire training tower, this is, I think, an exciting project based on some of the insurance credits we're going to get out of this on our rating. And this is also from the 2023 bond.
Gail, on the training field, I know we were waiting to get back reports on whether or not we were going to be able to do all 3 buildings. Is that still the plan, or we're going to have to scale back a little bit on it?
Yeah, right. We still need to figure out what the engineers are going to come back on, how much the concrete's going to cost, and then I can answer that question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And what he's referring to is how many stories high. These are prefab buildings that drop on concrete. So because of the weight of the trucks and ultimately building out the fire training field, which is dedicated land that we got after the port settlement agreement, and that can only be used for fire training or police training facilities on all that land in front of Public Works. So this would be situated at the far left of one of the pad sites with the vision of on down the road, future CIPs building out different phases, building additional concrete, storage, et cetera. But this would be phase 1. Community house. So we have not, this is a project that we put on last year, and we have kind of struggled there. If you've been in this building, it's a lot of work to do. We put 150 in. We have 150 on your schedule right now, but we continue to talk to a couple of different contractors, and it's going to need a lot more than $150,000. So this is one that I'm going to make a change in the recommendation tonight of probably moving the needle on this if council's comfortable with that, if council still sees this as a priority. What we had talked about doing is to give the facade a fresh paint upgrade. The restrooms need a complete overhaul. So if you've been in the restrooms over there, they're very dated. We've done the best we could do through the years. I encourage you to visit them. They need a lot. So the plumbing is going to have to be completely taken out. It's on a pier and beam. There's going to be a lot of work done in that area. The kitchen is similar. We did a remodel about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. And a lot of the materials we put in were not commercial grade. And so if you serve and volunteer over there or just want to take a tour at any time, they're disintegrating faster than we thought they were going to. So this project the scope has expanded this year, and we would be recommending, if council wants to prioritize this still, to take this up a little notch in the funding and do
Okay, Gail, I have a question. So this was a beautiful log cabin before this, right?
There are pictures, so I think that the hardy plank, if we rip that off, and you can see it on the porch. Yes, there's still some of the planks.
Why was it covered over in the first place, and can we get it back to its original thing without sacrificing square footage?
Oh, I don't think it would sacrifice on the outside any square footage. I don't know why they put the hardy plank on there, and I have no idea how to answer that question.
It's just, I'm wondering, why can't we just, I mean, I don't know how much this is going to cost, but it's one of the first, and forgive me, eyesores you see from NASA One when you're coming into town. So to me, if we could get this to where it looked more nostalgic and kind of was more of a conversation or interest piece instead of, oh my gosh, a rundown building, no offense. Not that this is your fault in any way. I'm just saying, if we could get it back to that look and look at it more of a preservation project, could we possibly say it's a historic building that we're restoring and find grants for it or some other means of funding?
So we did explore historic. It's not deemed historic.
Well, dang it.
Yeah, so that we've gone down that. But I mean, we could have a contractor take a peek and see. I don't know why they covered it up, and I don't know what the condition.
That's okay. I was just, I've wondered it for a while now, so I thought now's the time to maybe bring that up.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, but anyway, that's.
Great questions. I think this is our last section, last section, sidewalk. So this, several years ago, we had a lot of citizens come to us on sidewalk repairs. So the shifting of your sidewalks, this is done different in different cities. Some cities require homeowners to take care of their own sidewalks, replace them, get them leveled out, take care of them. Some cities put sidewalk plans together. We opted that year to start investing and doing the sidewalk rehabilitation plan on the city's dime. We started off with $50,000, and the amount of square footage of the requests that are coming in. And Brian, how many sheets do you have left now in Excel? Huh? Oh, 2 more left?
Your individual names, like spots.
Okay. So they've done a tremendous job. Last year, we spent $100,000 and spent $50,000. So this will be $250,000 total. And one gentleman brought in, I think it was originally 4 Excel pages long. So Brian and his predecessor have been working through each one of these, and we tried to do it in-house and quickly understood that we're eating up a lot of time by the time we mobilized just to do a segment here and a segment there. So the idea was introduced to council a couple years ago to contract this out, do an RFP once a year, and put the money in the budget. Again, we started with $50,000, we moved to $100,000, and we've made great strides. So this would be coming in your future budget, and this would be, if the tax rolls come in good, this will be somewhere under the streets for an additional $100,000. But it's depicted on your CIP just to show you it's a long-term asset and a maintenance that we're working on.
Is that just for those neighborhoods that were listed, or?
So this is what we are going to be targeting if approved in the next round. They worked on Lake Cove and Seabrook Island on this last round. That was for this last year. And then the previous year was, where did y'all work before? Lake Point Forest? Okay.
How are those neighborhoods selected? Y'all just observe and just go some sort of scale?
It's based on our current list. We can have our people that kind of emailed us spots. We would go, okay, there's a lot of this. And this.
Brian, she wants you at the mic.
Through our request tracker, we get a lot of sidewalk repair requests. So we'll base it on how many requests we get for what area. The more requests that area has, we'll hit that area first. And we just kind of work our way down the list.
And so by request, they just contact y'all's office or submit somewhere online?
It's online, request tracker online.
Request tracker online. Thank you.
All right, this is our last slide, but this is items for discussion. So not on your current list, but projects that we would like to get council's feedback on. With the police department and the recent bond, we've gotten several issues, as probably most of you walked through and saw in the existing department. So I think, depending on in the future, if that item, is up for discussion, it's probably going to be several years down the road, possibly. And then it could be a couple of years past that before we even went vertical. So that doesn't really fix the problems of some of the issues that we're having within the police department right now. If you walk through, you can see that they've got a very aged and tiny, dilapidated little kitchen that needs some remodel and attention there. The flooring is continuing to be a problem. It's coming up and it's in bad repair in most places. And then just general maintenance overall that we'd like to discuss about putting into an overall package of painting and just doing some refresh throughout. So we don't have numbers tonight. Really, this is going to serve as introducing it back to the council to see if you would be comfortable with us going out and actually getting some costs and then coming back at the next budget workshop before we actually talk about placing it on the proposed plan. City Hall renovations, as much like our police department, not as bad, but we are in some need of rehab in our kitchen area. We've had a couple of leaks that our police department has received over the last couple of 6 months. We've had a water heater explode And our kitchen sink, the floor rotted out and started leaking as well. And so there's a lot of things that just general maintenance that's kind of deferred that would be put together as a refresh and city hall renovations. And then our last one is fire station. And I know Jared is fully aware, but I know there was a lot of discussion recently with the prior council on some issues over there. And we are going to be coming back with the fire department, the EMS and the EOC expansion project, the bid award. That bid award has what we call alternates in it. And we had bid out, for instance, allowing to do a cutout where we can put another refrigerator in. They have what they call the red room. That carpet is original to the building. And so be refreshing that, doing some additional painting. And then lastly, the HVAC system. We have some serious issues with the HVAC system. Depending on who you talk to, the original design of the building, whatever the problem is, we have a serious problem over there. We've got some issues that are doing leaks, condensation. The dorm rooms were given separate splitters a couple of years ago. We thought we were going to solve some issues, and it's not. It's actually worse. And so we have some mold issues now. We're also looking at a pretty hefty cost right now to do some mold remediation so that we can make it safe for these guys again. But the problem is the HVAC system is a mess. I don't have a cost for you yet, but that's in addition. We've got some alternate bid money that is going to be proposed to you at fixing some of the issues, but we fear it's bigger than that. So we might be looking at a bigger maintenance issue on the HVAC system. So this serves as a warning of what's to come. We're trying to get some costs together. The first cost is going to be the remediation. So we're going to do that as an emergency expenditure and try to get them a clean house again while we introduce to you guys the bid award, the alternate bids, and talk about what we need to do with that HVAC system.
I just want to mention, a big thanks to city staff that's kind of taken over the last maybe couple of months in addressing some of the issues that were brought up. So it's very much appreciative of city staff working together and getting some of those things taken care of. So we greatly appreciate it.
Well, that concludes, that concludes everything. I would like to pause on these items for discussion, just get a little bit of feedback on these particular things that will kind of help us set a motion. If council sees it as a project, a priority, then we'll come back with some better numbers for you to consider.
I think you definitely should get back to us with some of the numbers.
Okay.
I'm all for it. Just need to see them.
The items that are listed, 26, that's this coming up here, yeah. So those are not actually all budgeted, but those are items that, some of them are budgeted, some of them need to be taken care of this year.
Anything in your 26 column is what we will be focusing on starting in October of this year, if approved.
If approved.
Yeah. Everything past your 26 column, we're not worrying about right now. It's just on our long-term plan.
Okay, can we talk more about the East Meyer project? So it's 2.8 million roughly. And what makes it critical exactly?
On East Meyer?
Give me, yeah.
Brian, I'm going to rely on you.
East Meyer is on the list, and also 3rd Street.
And also what?
3rd Street, but 3rd Street is not as highly utilized as East Meyer.
Okay.
So we want to do East Meyer before we do 3rd Street. That's the reasoning behind East Meyer. It's subgrades failing. You'll see alligator cracking. You'll see potholes. It's a heavily traveled bus route. It's one of 3 east-west corridors through the city.
3rd Street's not, is 3rd Street on here?
It's probably further down on the CIP.
Oh,
While
oh
you're
yeah,
still,
okay.
while you're still up there, can we go over Lyman Street again?
So
I'm a little confused with the picture. Can we pull that picture back up? So the question is why would we be going from asphalt to concrete,
I think we're going to keep it asphalt.
but that's not what it said.
She corrected herself.
I think it's my mistake.
All right.
My mistake.
Sorry, Gail.
It's my mistake. I think we're going to go back with asphalt. It's not a.
Is it going to be wider?
Like to be wider, yes.
So we won't have any sloughing off on the sides that we shouldn't?
It shouldn't have any slipping off on the sides because we're going to redo the base material too. So the base, the sub base, and the
It's
asphalt.
the drainage that you see on both sides. I'm just curious, are you widening it and how much are you going to be able to go?
I would say maybe a foot or two wider. It won't be a full-blown 35-foot wide street. It's still going to be a rural 20-foot wide street.
Okay.
I think currently, right now, it may be 14, 16, almost only one lane.
So this is basically, well, if you're going to make it wider, it means you're going to have to go and put base in.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to pull this up and relay it?
Yeah, pull it up, probably dispose of it. It could be maybe reused as base material, but do a whole new base, 6-inch base, and then a 2-inch asphalt cap.
Okay.
We have meetings with there's like 5 residents in that area, and I have a meeting with them on Tuesday.
Oh, that's almost, you see the sloughing off on the right-hand side. You can see that it's happening on both sides, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost $1 million.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is one of those, we've had a hard discussion in the background, and I did ask Brian to reach out, because sometimes looking at that street, there's not very many homes on that street. However, we wanted to make sure before we talked to y'all tonight, if they didn't want it, and we had all of them showing up, we don't want it. We wanted to know that before. I think they're wanting to know more details, but they're generally in favor of the project. It is a lot of money, and that is the struggle. I mean, $10 million in our street fund right now seems like a lot of money, but we are trying to figure out the streets that we own, the conditions, and then the human factor of what makes sense and where to make those investments. And the rural streets are difficult, but they're grading the worst in our analysis. So.
So in regards to the pier, I know you don't have a hard number right now. Is it safe to assume that would try to be pushed out as a bond package?
I think there's a couple of different scenarios. So we, right now with Harris County, we have what they call the partnership grant. So we do have that as a grant in their 25. So I've reached out to them to see, now that bill was defeated, that he had all the applications hung up on, to see if we have a chance for 50-50. As you can see, I've got you a supplemental packet, and it goes from 1.9 to 2.4 in costs. And so we would still be looking at, if you take on the demolition, since they've given us a demolition grant, that would reduce it a little bit, but you still are going to be looking at probably about 50% of that cost at best case scenario. So this is really a council direction. I mean, you've got savings, you've got other port money, you've got bond debt issuance that you could look at. So we really are looking to council for how high of a priority this is, that you want to pull from existing funds. If you wanted to look at debt funds in the future and let the voters decide, completely up to council. But the grant opportunity is what we're working on right now.
So glad you said that. The reason I was asking, we're in what you've given us, there's a lot of propositions of utilization for the port fund. And in my opinion, I think utilizing that instead of pushing it out as a bond would make more sense as we're making that decision. Thank you.
Just to further that discussion, we were out on Sunday. We had that little storm kind of roll through town. And I took some pictures, and the water level is almost up to the top of those piers, just in the little rollout storm that we had this weekend. just for consideration for, and another consideration for raising the level of the pier. And as Tommy suggested, leaving as many of the current piers there for the fish and the wildlife and stuff.
And that would offset some of the demo cost ultimately, right?
It would. So part of your packet, I did get a cost on what it would take to have a surveyor go out and look at each one of the piers to see which ones would be in conflict with the design. So the exhibit that you show with the sides are the angled piers. That's the design that we're looking at, what I call the new design. So the designer did say there's going to be conflicts, but you would have to do a survey to figure out which ones would need to be pulled and which ones could stay. So I think it's around $11,000 if we wanted to get a survey done of the piers.
For those of you that weren't on council when Ike took it out, FEMA came up and ponied up a bunch of money for the pier, so it went back as was. When Nicholas came along, we were not declared a disaster, no FEMA money, so it's all on us. Council then decided, saying, why would we want to build back exactly what we have when something as small as Nicholas can wipe it out and go back with something that would be more storm resistant? And there we came up with the concrete pilings, et cetera. The other things I think that need to be looked at is, I think there was 10 pilings that had to be replaced after Ike. I don't know how old those pilings are, if they were the original ones, and because treated wood pilings are good for about 30 to 50 years at the very best. And I sure wouldn't want to spend a whole bunch of money building a pier on bad foundation. The other thing too is to look at some other alternatives, maybe that if we can use some of the existing pilings, if they're still good, to have a flow-through deck. If we can elevate it and have a flow-through deck, how that would be. And I'm not saying for this staff to give it to me, but to get a professional opinion saying, yes, it would be more storm resistant, or no, another Nicholas could wipe it out. Just my thoughts.
Would that be part of that 11,000?
No, I have to ask if they'll do a conditions. Talking to the architect, when he did a walkthrough on the project and was designing the new design, his comments back are that the piers are not, he doesn't see any of them that are salvageable to bolt back into. Once the deck came off of it, most of the tops of those are disintegrated quite a bit, and there's nothing to grab onto and bolt back to. So that was his visual. I can ask, and if council wanted to proceed with the survey for conflicts, also see if they could do a conditions and see if there's any of them that they think are salvageable.
Okay, was Bob about the snap jackets? Would that help or improve those with the deteriorated tops?
Again, he put together a cost estimate. The jackets themselves are probably $800,000 in the cost estimates. The mobilization and other line items to get that thing back in order. I think some of those on that cost estimate were assuming that they would have to be yanked and new pilings would be going in.
That wouldn't raise the level, though. That's just rebuilding it back at the same level.
Okay, so the snap jackets would be $800,000.
That's just one line. So the snap jacket overall, this engineer's cost estimate, if you got a professional group out there, they mobilized insurance, they used the pile wrappings. The pile wrappings are, yes, around $877,000. But then to go back with all of the other stuff to put the structure back together on top and do wood decking, you're looking still at an overall project cost estimate of $1.9 million.
So we're $300,000 difference from the cement pilings. Thank you.
So again, at this point, we're waiting on Harris County.
Right.
Okay. And I have a second person asking too, not to cut off what you're doing, but I'm trying to do it.
Okay.
Just wouldn't hurt to have two people ask two different people, and hopefully we get a better answer from one person than the other.
Gail, was there any discussion with the grant writer, about the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant? Because I was doing some research and I know they've, allocated money and granted money for. things of this nature?
We did early on have a conversation with him. The one that is, I think it's not the angler, but sorry, I can't remember the name of it. The amount of money that we're needing, I think the cap was like $500,000 on that particular grant that the pier would fit into. So when the costs were coming out, I mean, we could look and see if we could still apply for 500 there, and if we could couple it with the county.
Because with the matching, if they, I mean, the county really doesn't matter how the money is funded to match, right? So if they give us 500,000, then the county will match that 500,000, right?
I think what we could do is if it's let's say a 2.1 million and we are needing to come up with 1.5, it would take care of the city's 0.5. So we would still be left with approximately $1 million.
Thank you.
Yep.
On the repairs for the police station, is the city staff need like a recommendation from council to, or like guidance to go forward with start working on that? Is that kind of what y'all are waiting on? And does that require like actual like motion or just?
No, in the workshop session, I think if y'all can just tell me that there's a general consensus of not, to shut me down and don't do this, we'll set off and get into more detail to get some numbers together.
I mean, I think definitely the last page, I don't have any trouble, just getting some numbers together. And
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think, we can at least, give city staff, direction to start working on getting, the work and the quotes and everything going forward, just so that way we can have that information in front of us so we can make some decisions moving forward. If nobody else has any other.
Well, certainly we want to support that and go forward with that. Is that something we need to do a vote, or we just need to give you direction? All right, let's do it.
Did that include city hall? Okay, back to the pier. Sorry, I have another thought. So if we change the complete design, what's the turnaround time with the GLO on getting the permit? I mean, it could take years, right?
No, we have a core permit when it was originally installed, so we're good. And we also have a GLO permit that we keep renewing. So the permits are good. It's just construction cost. We did, with this particular designer and what Councilman Hammond was speaking, when we first set out on this, we did spend about $180,000 on this design. So we are invested with the current, what we call new design, in architectural fees of $180,000.
Okay, so we've already paid that. Okay, I was just trying to think of what could go wrong.
I just want to add one thing is when we're thinking about unknowns and knowns, we've got a thing called FEMA. And President Trump has already announced that FEMA is going to be relegated to the states in 2026. We don't know what our exposure is or is not going to be. How much do we get from Ike? Do you ballpark number?
I did take a peek at the project write-up. So when FEMA estimated it, it was around $200,000 for.
Not the pier, for everything.
Oh, everything that came through. Oh, with as much damage as we had at the wastewater plant, I think we were around $12 million in funds.
And that's a big unknown. And I'm just offering that out because we don't know. We have not heard a word from the state as to what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. And if we have another Ike, we could be on the hook for $12 million. So before we zip off on stuff that are nice to have, we better just focus on the things we got to have.
In regards to the FEMA changes, I would like to see if we could get a GLO representative to come in and talk to us a little bit about that, because the money's funneled through the GLO once it's approved by FEMA. So that was just a discovery I made a couple weeks ago. I was like, And the girl that's responsible for our side of Harris County is more than happy to come talk. So if we wanted to do a workshop and invite her, or I don't know how we would do that, but.
So GLO does have some mitigation and resiliency money, and I'm going to put Kevin Rogers on. Might put him on the spot. If we have a disaster, TDM is still the funneling mechanism that we're. Okay.
Everybody watching.
And I think from conversation that we've had at Deer Park and just other cities, and even at the recent TDM conference, like what Buddy said, the biggest unknown is nobody knows what direction, like how the money is going to be allocated from FEMA. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. Right now, the way it works is we put in for, let's take Beryl, for instance, the different categories that we submit all the paperwork for. It goes to FEMA. FEMA does their review. TDM's doing their review. Ultimately, the funds are funneled through TDM from the federal government.
Hey, Kevin, and we throw around a lot of acronyms. Can you tell them what TDM is?
Texas Division of Emergency Management.
They're from the government. They're here to help.
Yes. Thank you, Councilman.
And usually, most of the disasters that we've had, Kevin's now worked several of them since our previous director. So they're really well versed. We have 48 to 72 hours out. We ask our staff to get ready. And anybody that's called emergency or essential personnel is required to get their family in order and then get back here. And then they're on 24-hour shifts, basically. We do have sleeping that they're off, and then we do rotations. But Kevin's job immediately after a storm, even if it's not massive, and we've had to mobilize our first responders in all three of those departments, we have overtime that I think the minimum we probably look at is $85,000, and that's a baby storm of overtime sometimes. So that just kind of gives you a sneak peek of where we have to go and get prepared 72 hours out and then keep them here that whole time. So if FEMA comes in and we do have a declaration, then what FEMA's doing is matching 75% of that $85,000, and we get a check back. It takes a heck of a lot of work between finance and these directors because they have to do a lot of documentation to make sure it's done right and get it into the system. And then they work with TDM, and then TDM hires third-party consultants. And then Mike and the team are on lots of Zoom calls for months and months and months and closeouts. And that's why Mike doesn't have any hair. But we get it done, and millions of dollars have come back into the city because of these teams doing all the right paperwork and putting it in. So the 75, and sometimes if major disasters happen, they'll open up a 90% to a 10% match, which is even better. And so we get a lot of money back. We do, if the current projects that we just went through, again, throwing around a lot of acronyms, but this HMGP, hazard mitigation grants, the GLO, these all come out after disasters. And what they want cities to do is to build back resiliently so they don't have to pay out again. And that was kind of where that discussion with the peer started, was really from the feds, they want people to, raise their houses. They want you to build infrastructure and amenities that are not going to get wiped out every time a surge event happens, given that these things are happening more frequently. So there's a lot of work that goes into just even a false alert, and we're just mobilizing for 48 hours. But
Thank you, Kevin.
So Mayor and Council, this is kind of the conclusion as far as what I've got prepared. Again, this is workshop, and it's still not the end. So when we get to the next budget workshop, if we have missed something, if there's additional projects you'd like us to look at, this is just your introduction to sort of our long-range plan for capital, and we'll take, if there's no objections, these projects and insert them into your next budget sheets.
Any objections? I'll volunteer my salary as mayor to put back into the budget. That being the case, if everybody's in agreement, we'll close the workshop session at 7:14 and enter back into a regular session at 7:14 and 50 seconds. And there being no further business before this council, I'll adjourn the meeting at 7:15. Thank you all. Thank you for your hard work. Get a plate.